Hello again, everybody. This is Steve Callis speaking of sports, and I'm here with Anthony Sorbellini, our Iona College grad student intern, and we're here to talk about another member of the Hall of Fame basketball class of 2020, specifically the one and only Tim Duncan. Now, I think of all these guys, as great a class as this is, I think Tim Duncan is my favorite for a number of reasons. Played 19 seasons, all with the Spurs, won 5 NBA titles, won 3 Finals MVPs. Won the first one with David Robinson, won the last few with Ginobili and Parker. But the thing I loved about Tim Duncan since I first saw him play is just his cool, calm, and collectedness. This guy was not a hot dog. Nobody ever taught him to pound his chest or, talk about himself or draw attention to himself. He was always, always, always a team guy. So I have a lot of other things to say about Tim, but Anthony Sorbellini, give me your thoughts on Tim Duncan and his 5 NBA championships.
You touched on it. Tim Duncan was kind of, I think, deep down inside of him, he knew how great of a player he was. He just wasn't going to go out there on the court and, go out there and trash talk. He was kind of like a silent assassin. You knew what he was going to do, and he knew what he was going to do, and he was just going to go out there, just put up his game, just do everything. Looking at it from my perspective, if I were, whether it be a coach or even, a parent further down the line, I would want to, whether it be, not only just basketball, but any sport moving forward, not just basketball, I'm going to have my kid or whatever kind of, I don't want to say emulate, but, look at what he would do, because he wasn't braggadocious. He wasn't really in your face. He was kind of just, I'm going to go put my work in and I'm just kind of going to go out, do my thing, do what I can to help my team win, and just just put everything out on the line, just in his own way. And I think that's what makes him completely unique compared to, especially Kobe and KG.
Ah,
Just the NBA as a whole, because I think the NBA they're such they're such superstars. They're kind of they're kind of almost like WWE wrestlers on a court. They all have their own personalities. They all kind of, whether it be in your face, braggadocious. But then Tim Duncan was the complete polar opposite. He was just going to go out there. He was going to go ball. He was going to go get his rebounds. Be a defensive player. Get whatever points he can, and then still dish it out. Just do whatever he can to help the Spurs win. It proved. He ended his career with five championships.
that's right. And on the continuing, at least from my thought process, emphasis on defense, which I think you're right, in 5 or 7 years, I don't think we'll be having these conversations. Although hopefully we'll find out someday you can make a guest appearance. But he was 15 times all NBA defensive first
Mhm.
or second team. And that's number one all time. Again, I give my Bill Russell, although Russell only played 13 seasons. I don't think they had it back then, but obviously he would have been on all those teams all of those years when he played. So Duncan, to me, greatest nickname ever given to him by Shaq, the big fundamental, and that's so true in a number of ways, not just in the way he played the game, never screaming or bragging or pushing or anything, just kind of the way he got the ball, he got his rebounds, as you said, he'd kick your butt and go home, and at the end of the year, they'd be, 1-3 to win the championship, which is essentially what he did. So I think that's probably the greatest basketball nickname I've ever heard because it fits so well. And it was interesting because Duncan, as you probably know, was a 4-year player at Wake Forest, and he really is the last of the superstars. I don't think there's been anybody in the 21st century who would play 4 years. It's too easy now to go after, the one and done rule now. You used to be able to go straight from high school. Now it's one and done. Some guys go to high school and then go play somewhere else in China or Europe for a year, but they can't go directly from high school to the NBA like Kobe did, for example,
Right.
like LeBron did, for example. Right now, those days are gone. Will they return? There's a movement to have them return, but we'll have to see. But I saw an interview with Duncan who said, I really needed 4 years of college I grew up in the Virgin Islands. I was actually trying to become an Olympic swimmer. Think of that for a minute. But just another one of these things where you see, Akeem Olajuwon was a Nigerian soccer goalie, or even players in the States played baseball or football. LeBron James was an all-state wide receiver, for example. But he was very determined to point out that for him, again, he wasn't a guy who grew up in an urban area, New York, Chicago, Detroit, LA, wherever, somewhere down Miami. But he was a guy who was a swimmer in the Virgin Islands. So he thought that the 4 years were not only helpful, but necessary to him becoming a great player. And then, as he explained, he got to San Antonio, hit the jackpot with Popovich, the coach, with David Robinson, the admiral. He even mentioned Sean Elliott by name to his game, although my recollection is he was awful good, awful early. But he continued to get better and better and better, won more and more championships. And the thing I'll remember most about him, in addition to his great defense and his great scoring, I mean, again, these three guys had both sides of the court, is just the way he carried himself. And I agree with you. I've shown my son, who's now in his mid-20s, Tim Duncan tapes when we watched him when he was little. Just watch this guy play. Watch the way he carries himself. Watch what happens if a guy really hits him hard or something. He's not looking to punch a guy back. He's looking to kick his butt, win the game, and go home. Anthony Sorbellini, any final thoughts on Tim Duncan, 2020 Hall of Famer?
Yeah, I mean, just going off, you showing a tape of Tim Duncan to your son growing up. I mean, that's kind of just Tim Duncan's kind of like, I guess, the model athlete who I guess you would want to be. I mean, he's going to be a great ambassador for the NBA, but he can be a great ambassador for pretty much anything he gets involved with just because his overall demeanor, he kind of, like I said, just went out there, went to go ball, but then he knew at the end of the day, like, it is just basketball. Now, not diminishing sports or anything, but it's just basketball. He was kind of just like, I'm going to work type deal. So, but you could never, like I said, silent assassin, you could really never get a feel on his face. He really wasn't emotional, but he went out there and he did everything he needed to.
Tim Duncan, the big fundamental 2020 Hall of Famer. This is Steve Callis speaking of sports, along with Anthony Sorbellini. We'll see you the next time.